Hello, my name is Shirley Moncada, and this is my presentation of adolescent and youth in the juvenile system. When you hear the word adolescent, what is the first thing that comes to mind? This is the transitional stage of physical and psychological development that occurs from puberty to adulthood, or when the youth legally turns 18. When you hear the word juvenile, what is the first thing that comes to mind? Well, for most people, they see a teen that is most likely doing something naughty, such as talking back to their parent or ditching classes at school. Myers and DeWall described adolescence as the years spent morphing from child to adult. It starts with the physical beginnings of sexual maturity and ends with the social achievement of independent adult status. Mental health in children begin as early as inside the mother's womb. It is very important that the mothers avoid physical and emotional stressors as well as substances. For instance, according to the Office of Surgeon General in 1999, when the child remains subject to deprivation, inadequate or insensitive care, lack of affection, low levels of stimulation, or poor education over long periods of time, later adjustment is likely to be severely compromised. Although we would like to believe that adolescent years are carefree and happy, surveys have revealed that worry is the most common experience for children. It is thought that this is the most crucial time during the adolescent years. This is when physical and sexual changes start to happen with the child's body. They're becoming a teenager. They're starting to feel pressures and temptations, which typically cause them to feel nervous, confused, and depressed. Some disorders displayed by children, such as childhood anxiety, childhood depression, and disruptive disorders, have adult counterparts. And although they are also distinct in certain ways. Other childhood disorders, such as an elimination disorder, for example, usually disappear or radically change form by adulthood. The psychological model of the therapy model suggests that abnormal behaviors are caused by psychological events such as grief, anxiety, and fear. Hergenhan and Henley state it is believed that psychological events influenced by biological events and vice versa. So what this means is that if a child is having troubles communicating or feeling connected with those at home, such as their parents or siblings, they're also going to have those anxieties and fears in the community and also have trouble communicating outside in the community. Within typical development, perhaps the greatest set of challenges and growth for early adolescence revolves around social development, and this is includes forming and maintaining healthy relationships. Steinberg and Haskin states, like adults, adolescents make choices shaped by their levels of cognitive and psychosocial development. Although the cognitive functioning of most adolescents approaches that of adults, the real-world circumstances under which they make decisions about whether to commit criminal acts are often shaped by emotional arousal and group pressure. So it's very hard for these kids to, if they're seeing an adult commit crimes, they're more likely to follow that, or same thing with their friends. The most common offenses for an adolescent to be incarcerated or placed in a residential setting are crimes against property or persons. So Comer states more than half of the juveniles who are arrested each year repeat the offense. And boys are much more involved in the juvenile crime than girls. Although the main goal for the juvenile system is to rehabilitate the youth, factors such as dangers of incarceration and expenses have put a burden on the rehabilitation factors. Comer also states that girls are more likely to be arrested for drug use, sexual offenses, and running away, and boys are more likely for drug use and crimes against property. Although running away is just considered a status offense, too many youth are being incarcerated for this, and in the end they're overcrowding the jails. Scientific evaluations of prevention and treatment programs for youth that provide systematic treatment in community and family settings show that these programs significantly reduce future criminal behavior without the need of harsh sanctions. So they're looking more into to therapies rather than just putting these kids in the juvenile system. A core principle of the American justice system is the penal proportionality. This is the foundation doctrine that holds fair criminal punishment and is based not only on the harm caused by the crime, but also the blameworthiness of the perpetrator. When a youth commits a crime between the ages of 8 and 18, the system automatically labels them as a juvenile delinquent. And this can be at the beginning, this can be the beginning of a lifelong repeat of offenses. And studies have shown that the frontal lobe of the brain is what controls important cognitive skills that include their emotions, their problem solving, their memory, and their judgment, and also sexual behaviors, and it controls how a juvenile communicates. Studies have also demonstrated that this frontal lobe doesn't fully mature until one is at least in their 20s. So this is a huge reason why we should be doing more therapies rather than throwing children into the juvenile system. So with that being said, adolescents that make mistakes, they have a chance to learn from these consequences. However, a consequence of locking a child up with adults with much more serious offenses, and in my opinion, is setting them up for failure. Children tend to copy or repeat behaviors of those that they look up to. So if they're being locked up with children, or if they're locking up children with adults that have similar behaviors, they're not rehabilitating them. What they should be doing is sending them home with a parent and setting up in-home therapies with the parent, so they can better communicate with each other. Comer also states, given the importance of family factors in conduct disorder, therapists often use family intervention. So this is what I was saying. So this allows a therapist to teach the parent how to successfully communicate, to set limits and be consistent and be fair and establish appropriate expectations, and be positive while working with the child. And it also teaches the child how the same thing. So setting their limits, how to communicate effectively with their parent. However, if there's no progress made, there's a treatment foster care. So what this is instead of placing the child in the juvenile system, they're putting the child into a foster home that will separately teach them how to communicate with the parent and then the parent with the child. So another avenue that I didn't really touch base on yet is the child abuse. The long-term negative effects include lack of social acceptance, a higher number of medical and psychological disorders during adulthood, more abuse of alcohol and other substances, more impulsive and risk-taking behaviors, more arrests during adolescence and adulthood. They're at greater risk of becoming criminally violent. There's a higher unemployment rate and a higher suicide rate. As many as 1/3 of those who are abused grow up to be abusive, neglectful, and inadequate parents themselves. So it's these children that are being abused and being taken out of their home, they're at much more risk of repeating this and or having substance abuse issues or in and out of jail themselves. So this is what most social workers refer to as the vicious cycle. Children come into the care as young as, as a child, and they grow up in the system, and when they emancipate out of the system, they get married, have children of their own, and then their children tend to end up in the system, typically for the same reason they were in the system. So being a social worker for child protection is emotionally hard work. Terica Hardy in 2016 wrote a poem, and she said, "I'm the one who's willing to advocate, no matter how hard the task. To some, I'm an educator, to others, I'm a broker. I wear many hats, I'm a social worker. Many fail to realize the importance of this great profession. Promoting human well-being, social worker has contributed to a world's progression. held to strong ethics standards, inspired to serve. Social workers fight hard to promote the social justice everyone deserves. Valuing the human relationship, respecting the worth of the individual. A true social worker is selfless, putting people first, is a ritual vowing to remain competent in all we do. We strive to uphold integrity by staying committed to you. And so that is the end of my presentation. I hope you enjoyed. And here are my references. Thank you.